Thank you. Okay, so I want to start with something practical. You probably heard that on Pesach you shouldn't have any chametz.
Really?
Probably heard about it. So besides cleaning and everything else, there's chametz that stays with us and we don't want to throw it out, so you have to sell that chametz. And there are a lot of halachas how to sell the chametz. So therefore, the one who sells the chametz to a non-Jew is going to be a Rav who knows all the halachas. And our job is to sell it to the Rav, and then he's going to sell our chametz to the non-Jew. So I'm giving out this sheet here. And here in each box, you can write your name. Here, I'm going to send this along so you see exactly what to do. What you need to do is write your name, write the address, which is either 1367 President Street and your room number, or whichever address you have. And then what people like to do is also write where they're going to keep the chametz. In the second cabinet on the third floor behind the curtain. But being that at this point, most people don't know exactly where they're going to keep it. So the better thing to write is where indicated, which means before Pesach, you'll put tape or a piece of paper or something to show this is chametz. So now you don't have to write the exact spot, just write wherever it'll be indicated in the future, that's the spot. And put your signature on it. And then you have to make a transaction that how you're giving it over to the rabbi. So the rabbi, which is Rabbi Majeski Senior, gave me his pen. And when you lift the pen, which belongs to him, that's how you're making the transaction. So right now, the pen is in the other classroom, but in the meantime, I can pass this around and you could write your information. And when the pen will come, you can lift it and then it'll go over to Rabbi Majeski.
Rabbi, what about instead not actually having any chametz?
Then I guess you don't have to sell anything. If you don't have anything, you don't have to sell anything. Well, sometimes this could also include certain products that you're not going to use for Pesach because there's questions whether there's chametz there or not. Cosmetics or other things, which might be a question. So, already? Done? Thank you. What?
I thought you can use perfume.
If it's something you can use, you don't sell it, then you'll use it. But if there's anything that you're not going to use, dishes or anything else, and you're not going to use it because of questions of chametz, then those are the things that you would sell. If you don't have anything in that category, you have nothing to sell. True. So this is the pen. You'll be first, Nati, and then you'll pass it around. Thank you. Okay, so this page, and we're going to do now, page 31, a lot of the things that are here, we actually learned in the Mimer. Yes? For example, what? You could put down Dominican also. Yeah, you can take another box, write down Dominican. You can write an address that's overseas if you think you might have chametz there, right? In other words, if you're not sure, it's better to write it. Nothing will be harmed if you write it, and then it'll be included. There is a question when a person is going to be in a different time zone. If you're going to be in a different time zone, there's questions that come up. No, as long as you're here and the rabbi who is selling it to is here. But if you're going to go to a place like California, where Pesach starts 3 hours later, and you're going to be here, I mean, you'll be there and you'll sell it to the rabbi here. That these are questions. You'll be going to a country, so there's a difference if it's later or it's earlier. But then you have to ask a question. But if you're going to a place where the time zone is the same, then it's not a problem.
But say Texas is 1 hour behind, but that means here Pesach comes in earlier. So wouldn't that be more ideal?
Right. I think if it comes in earlier, then you are okay. But if you go to a place where it comes in later, then you have to sell it in the place where you're going to be. In other words, if you sell it to a Rav here, and then you go to Pesach to London, let's say, and Pesach comes in earlier over there, that's going to be a question, because when they sell their chametz, am I saying this right?
Yeah, when you're selling it here.
It's Pesach already there, right? So that's
the
a
problem.
question, right?
So in Texas, it'll be fine.
And Texas will be fine because it's earlier, right? Texas is an hour earlier than us.
No, like it's 10 o'clock then. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is about matzah. We're going to do two classes now. One on page 31, which is about the matzah, and the other one will be about the chametz. These are the two main mitzvahs of Pesach: eating matzah and not eating chametz. So we learned the mimer, and that's what we're going to cover now. Number 1 and number 2. The mimer explained that matzah has two names. One name is on top of the page, Michlo de Mehimnusa, which means bread of faith. And number 2 is Michlo Dasvasa, bread of healing. And this is based on the Zohar that gives the following mashal. This is from the Zohar, that there was a king who had a son that got very sick. And the doctor said that because of his illness, he needs to eat special food and shouldn't eat anything else until he's healed. Once he's healed, then he can go back to eating all the regular foods. We were in Mitzrayim, and as a result of being in Mitzrayim, we became sick in a spiritual sense. And therefore Hashem said, you need to eat special food for 7 days, which is matzah, and that's going to heal us. After Pesach, we can eat bread and cookies and cake and chametz, whatever we want, because now we're healed. So we see from this that matzah is bread of faith, and matzah is also bread that brings healing. Where is there a source that matzah is food that's connected to faith, to Abuna? So the answer to that is as follows. Let's turn the page in the booklet and look at page 33. Over there it says, this pasuk, it's underlined. Sorry, again, it's only underlined in the Hebrew, not in the English. So in the English, just look for pasuk 21. Pasuk 21 reads as follows: I will betroth you. Hashem says, I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me with righteousness, with justice, with kindness, and with mercy. And I will betroth you to me with fidelity, and you will know Hashem. Fidelity is a word that I'm not familiar with, but in Hebrew the word is verastachli be'amuna, with amuna. So what does it mean? I will betroth you, this so many times repeated. So the Gemara says, I'm not sure that they bring it in their footnotes, but the Gemara says that the marriage of Hashem and the Jewish people took place in 2 stages. We had this many times. And that is going out of Egypt, going out of Mitzrayim is stage 1. And then when we receive the Torah, it's stage 2. So both were a process of betrothing and marriage, but this is the beginning. And when we got the Torah at Har Sinai was the completion. And what does it say here in these words? It says, I will betroth you with emunah, with faith. And then it says, I will betroth you with mishpat, with justice. This is alluding to these 2 times. When we went out of Mitzrayim, we didn't have the Torah yet. We didn't have the laws of the Torah and the learning part, the academic part. So we went out of Egypt, we went out with emunah, with faith. When we got the Torah at Har Sinai, what is Torah? Torah is the academic part. We're connecting to Hashem through learning and understanding and comprehending. So therefore, both are times that we connect to Hashem, but one, the connection is through faith, and the other is the connection through understanding. So therefore, here is a source in the Torah itself that going out of Egypt is connected to faith. Another source where we see the association of going out of Egypt and faith is, if you look in the booklet again, on page 34. The copy you're looking at is actually from the Siddur. It's from the davening on Rosh Hashanah, but the original source is a pasuk in Tanakh. And over there, it's a pasuk where Hashem is praising. There's a prophecy where the Navi, the prophet, is praising the Jewish people. And it says like this, Kayamar Hashem. This is what Hashem said. I underline the English, the Hebrew, but you can follow in English. I remember you for the devotion of your youth, the love of your bridal days, as you went after me in the wilderness in an uncultivated land. In other words, when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, they followed Moshe in the desert. What were they thinking? They didn't know that food is going to fall down from Shemayim. So there are 600,000 men and women, but altogether it says there were literally 3 million people. In a certain age bracket, there were only 600,000. And altogether there were 3 million people, there was cattle, and you're going into a desert. How are they thinking that they're going to survive? And the answer is, they didn't need to think. They just followed Moshe with faith that everything will turn out okay. They had no idea how it's going to be. They didn't know that there's going to be clouds covering them and that there's going to be all these other miracles taking place. So that means that our going out of Mitzrayim was basically with faith. What?
She's saying she doesn't want the pen, but I'm saying this is the opinion that she needs to lift up.
Right, yeah. No, it means she doesn't need the pen for the writing, but you need it for lifting.
Yes.
Oh.
You have to
Write the address and your room number.
Can we
And
do the same thing tonight?
What? You can use the pen to write, yeah. I put Scotch tape around it so it doesn't get lost because there are a lot of pens that look the same. So how does Matzah give you faith? I don't want to elaborate on this because in this class, we've been learning the Maimah of the Tzemach Tzedek about Amun, and we learned all about it, that the Matzah, the physical Matzah, is something which Hashem, through the Matzah, transmits Amunah to us. That gives us Amunah. So what it says here, number 5 and number 6 and number 7, we already learned in the Maimah. So I'm going to go to number 8. Based on what we learned, that matzah gives amunah, it also explains why matzah should be round. We know that there's an emphasis that the matzah should be round matzah, because you can also buy matzah that's square matzah. Now, true, the machine matzah is square, and the hand matzah is round. But why is it so important to have round matzah? So one of the answers to that is that roundness in Torah, and especially in Chassidus, represents infinite. A circle represents infinite. The word in Kabbalah for spiritual level, which is infinite, is actually igulim, which I wrote down number 8, circles. And this explains why there are times and places in Judaism where the mitzvah has to be performed in a way of making a circle. So for example, we have this on Simchas Torah. We're supposed to dance in a circle. We have it at a wedding where the kala and the family make a circle around the chassan. We have it on Sukkot, where you take the lulav and the esrog and shul, and you go around in a circle around the bima. So what is the significance of a circle? Whenever there's a point that through this we're going to draw down the infinite light of Hashem, we make a physical circle, which draws down the spiritual circle, which is the infinite. And it looks like this is also connected to a ring that's used for marriage, because the truth is, halachically, it doesn't have to be a ring, it could just be money. But the ring is also something which is a circle, and it represents that this marriage is forever, this connection is forever, but the main thing is that we're drawing down an infinite light of Hashem in the marriage. So therefore, by having matzah, that's going to be, matzah, it gives us amuna, regardless. If halachically matzah that's made by machine and matzah that's square is acceptable, that means it also gives us amuna. But when the matzah is actually physically designed that way and it's done with all these details, then the power of amuna in the matzah is just more revealed and more effective. That's what it means. Number 9, which we spoke about this in class, is that we know that the leaders of the generation are called Raya Mehemna, which means that they are shepherds that feed us with Amunah. So basically, a tzaddik gives us Amunah, and the matzah is sort of the vessel or the conduit through which we can get that Amunah. So again, I'm not going to go into more details because all this was talked about already before. So I'm going to go now to the second part, which is the Chametz. Let's talk about Chametz, page 40. It's before Pesach, but we still talk about Chametz. You know, on Pesach, people don't like to say something about challah. Instead of saying the word challah, they'll say chametz. So you can still say the word chametz, no problem. Okay, chametz is something which is very unique. The way it's prohibited according to Torah, the prohibition of eating chametz is unique and it's extreme more than almost anything else in the Torah. There's so many things in Torah that are prohibited, and especially related to foods that you're not allowed to eat, but hardly anything compares to the severity and the extreme approach that we have towards chametz. And here's a few of the things. So look at page 40. Number 1 on the list is Isurei b'mashahu. Isurei b'mashahu means that it's usur even if it's one little drop. What does that mean? Generally speaking, when it comes to the laws of kashrus, there's a principle called bittul. This is not bittul using it the way we use it in Chassidus, but bittul the way it's used in halacha. And we mentioned it recently that there are certain foods that if something not kosher falls into something which is kosher, and the kosher is 60 times more than the not kosher, in certain conditions, in certain situations, the not kosher gets canceled out because there's something that's 60 times more than it, and therefore it can be eaten. It becomes part of the kosher, and that's it. It's canceled out. It loses itself in the presence of the bigger picture, which is the 60. There's certain things that 60 is not enough. In certain areas of halacha, you need something to be 200 times more. And when it comes to chametz, it says even if it be 1,000 times more, which means a drop of chametz falls into a barrel which is full of kosher soup or kosher water or kosher wine, the whole barrel becomes chametz, if it happens on Pesach. And the question is, why is chametz being dealt with so severely more than anything else? But that's the first thing. Isur b'mashu, everything has a measurement. And if it falls into a bigger measurement, it loses itself. Chametz, even a little bit, makes everything chametz. The second thing is, with most things that are not allowed to be eaten, the prohibition is you're not allowed to eat it, but you can have it. But chametz, bal yirah, bal yamotzi, you're not allowed to see it, and you're not allowed to have it. You have to get rid of it. You're not allowed to have it in your home. That doesn't apply to other things which are not kosher. It's interesting that people who own farms, and years ago this was the most common thing, every single person had farm animals, which is a horse, a donkey. They're not kosher food, but you're allowed to have it. Thank you. Thank you. So why is it that this is so harsh? The next thing is Asubahana. Most things that are not kosher, you're not allowed to eat it, but you can have benefit from it. You can sell it to someone else and benefit from the money, or have other kind of benefit, but you're not allowed to eat. Chametz, you're not allowed to eat, and you're not allowed to have any benefit from chametz. Oh, I skipped number 3. Number 3 is bedikas chametz. How do you search for chametz? You go into the cracks and the crevices, and you're looking. Maybe there's a tiny, teeny piece of crumb of chametz there. Which other food that's prohibited you have to search for, and say you have to do such a search? Like it's not enough. You have to go down and look with a candlelight, and maybe there's. And what are you looking for? You're looking for crumbs. If that's not enough, being that it says in the Torah you have to destroy the chametz, the Gemara says, number 5, ein bir chametz ela b'sreifa. By the way, the vowels under the word chametz are very strange. Must be something according to Kabbalah, but it's those. I put in the vowels. It's a mistake. It's not Kabbalah. It's just a mistake. It's supposed to be chametz. A chametz under the ches and segel under the mem.
Rabbi, what's number 4?
Number 4, that you're not asubahana. Hana means benefit. Any kind of benefit is prohibited. And number 5 is that Gemara says, so if I have chametz, I want to get rid of it. How do you get rid of it? There are different opinions. One opinion says you can just throw it out and the wind will scatter it all over. Another opinion says throw it into the ocean, it'll fall apart to pieces. Take it and crush it and destroy it. No, we go by the opinion halacha that says that true destruction is only through burning it in fire. Could you imagine? Not only it's treif, not only the poor thing can be eaten, and the poor thing you can't have any benefit from it, you have to burn it, destroy it completely through fire.
But we can't do it this year.
What?
I mean,
We do it, we do the fire on Friday. Someone brought up the question that one of the rabbis said that this year we don't do fire. I'm not sure why he said that. We do the fire, but we do it on Friday. I'm going to skip number 6 for a second. Go to number 7.
So what do we like on Shabbos? Like it doesn't really have that over 11:40. So we're really not burning those.
We're not burning it. We're getting rid of it. First of all, we're eating it up. We're getting rid of it by eating it. And the little crumbs that are left, we flush it down the toilet. And that's how we got rid of it. But we still burn it in order to fulfill this thing of burning the chametz. We do that on Friday. If you look on the calendars, it'll actually tell you a time that it has to be burned before, I think, 10:50.
Do they have a huge,
What?
do they have a huge bonfire? Or there's a bunch of
They used to have in front of 770. Last year, they didn't have it because of COVID. I'm not sure what's going to happen this year. Very often, you walk out of your house, you see someone on the block is making a little fire, and you can just throw your chametz there. But there is a big fire in front of 770. And they actually have people from the police and the fire department managing it, make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. Number 7 is Matsushimura. In other words, after everything's said and done, we know the Chabad custom, not only Chabad, by the way, all Chassidim, that we don't eat matzah that got wet. In other words, we're so into this chametz thing, this chametz is so frightening that if a matzah got wet with a drop of water, we don't eat it because maybe the matzah wasn't fully baked and the water touched the matzah, and therefore we don't even need matzah that got touched with water. And that's why number 8 is Matsushimura. I'm not sure if everybody knows what Matsushimura means. Shmura means you guard it. What are you guarding it from? That it doesn't get wet. But everybody guards the matzah. What's so unique about Matsushimura? What's unique is like this. Everybody guards the matzah not to get wet. Once you're in the matzah bakery and you're working with this flour and everything else, Matsushimura means that once you cut it off from the field, as soon as you cut off the wheat from the field, from that point on, you already make sure that it's not getting wet. Years ago, it was much harder to do that, but today, because we have, people that tell us the weather, so the people who prepare for the matzah baking have to go out to the field only in a day that's going to be no rain, and then they cut it, but if it would rain and not the flour gets wet, the wheat gets wet, it's ready not Matsushimura.
Yeah, but how do they make it? Like they make it with water, no?
Yeah, they make it with water, but once you put in the water, you're not allowed more than 18 minutes. But if it would get wet in the field, then it'll be much more than 18 minutes by the time it's baked. What?
Make sure it doesn't get wet, because some people have lots of this.
Right, it's only a Hasidic custom. A lot of people, that's called shruya. A lot of people eat matzah with matzah balls, matzah brai. They have a different kind of, they don't follow that because they say this is an extreme caution.
Oh, so it's like it's not wrong, just that.
Yeah, if someone doesn't follow that standard, they're keeping Pesach. It's kosher. Okay, now after we just described how severe it's dealt with, then comes even a bigger question. Everything else that's not kosher means that there's something wrong with it. It's not kosher all year round. You can't eat treif meat any day of the year. You can't eat milk and meat any day of the year. This thing is so bad, it's so evil, it's so terrible that you can't, all these things apply to it. And yet, after Pesach is over, it's perfectly fine. How does that make sense? So it's like such an outright sort of paradox and contradiction. During Pesach, it's more severe than anything else that's treif. After Pesach, it's permissible. Not only is it permissible, there's even times with a mitzvah that you must dafka eat chametz. Where's there such a mitzvah? Number 6. I can't say Shabbos because theoretically you could make kiddush on 2 pieces of matzah. You don't have to eat chametz. But there's something called shtei halechem. On Shavuos, there's a sacrifice that has to be brought. And it says in the Torah, and that sacrifice has to come with bread, and the bread has to be chametz. So how could it be that something is so severe, so negative? Obviously, there's something so evil in this chametz thing that you have to deal with it so severely. And yet, after Pesach is over, it's permissible, perfectly permissible. Like you wouldn't even say, oh, somebody wants to be extra cautious. Would it be okay not to eat chametz after Pesach? No, that would be foolish, literally foolish. And not only that, there are times when it's a mitzvah to eat chametz. So how does that work? So we have to come to an understanding, what is the chametz? So what does Chassidus explain? I mean, not only Chassidus is based in Gemara and other sources, and we have some of the sheets here, so we'll see it. So the answer is like this. Everyone knows, of course, that chametz represents the Yetzer Hara. That's the general thing. But it represents a specific category of the Yetzer Hara, a specific trait, which is arrogance. In the language of Chassidus, it's yeshus. That's number 11 on the sheet, yeshus. And yeshus means the feeling of self and an inflated sense of self, an inflated focus on self, excessive sense of self. That's really, people think arrogance means that you don't publicize to others. In other words, I really know for myself that I'm the greatest guy around, but I'm not going to announce it. That's not true bittul. True bittul means when a person feels humble himself in truth. It's not just, I'm not going to boast over other people. And how could you really feel humble? Because you feel humble because of Hashem. You realize how everything we are and everything we have is all dependent on Hashem. So it's a feeling of humility. And that's what chametz is all about. Chametz is yeshus. Chametz, we know the difference between chametz and matzah is that the chametz is where the dough rises. Otherwise, the ingredients are the same. Chametz is flour and matzah is flour. Chametz is water and matzah is water. Chametz goes in the oven and matzah goes in the oven. The only difference is that with chametz, the dough rises and matzah doesn't rise. So that means that the only thing that really expresses what chametz is, what defines chametz is the trait of rising. And rising, that's arrogance, that's gaiva. According the Chassidus explains it, is that yeshus is I see, even when you say the word Yeshus, look what happens. Okay, I won't say. So that thing, which we're not going to say what it is the source of all klipa. It's really the source of all evil. It's that sense of separateness and independence of Hashem. Again, people think Yeshus means that I don't boast. Now, they once said, they asked somebody, so who is really the greatest rabbi amongst your whole group here? So the person didn't answer. He says, why don't you answer me? He said, I don't know what to say. If I say it's me, I'll be arrogant. If I say it's someone else, I'll be lying. I don't know what to say. So he says, now you're a liar and you're arrogant. Basically, the person thinks, I'm the greatest, but I don't want to say it out loud. That's not what it means. It means a certain sense of the Yeshus is the sense of self. And this leads to all the negative things, negative character traits that separate one person from another, and all the negative character that separate a person from Hashem. And I think this also came up previously in classes, so we're not going to go into it at length, but think of it like this. All the inyanim that have to do with bein adam lechaveira, like jealousy, anger, aggressiveness, things that have to do with being insensitive to others, not caring about other people, all these things come from Yeshus. A Yesh is a person that is just obsessed with self, is concerned about self, and therefore they don't care about other people. They're not ready to give away of themselves, not of their time, not of their money, not of their knowledge, share with anybody, because everything is about me. And therefore you will find, if you go through one by one, all the character traits that get in the way between two people in their relationship, the source of it is Yeshus. The source of it is Yeshus. And of course, what's the source of me not accepting Hashem and not submitting myself to Hashem completely is also Yeshus. Because the person's a Yesh, they don't want to let go of that sense of independence and feel they have to totally submit myself to what Hashem wants. I want to do what I want. I want to do it my way. I want to be the way I want to be. So again, I would really go into all the details, but I think we did it a few times this year. I don't want to go into it again, that Yeshus is something which is the source of everything negative. And that's why it has to be treated in such a way that we have to eradicate it completely. Because if you have the Yeshus, look what it's going to do to you. But then the question is, if bread is Yeshus and Chametz is Yeshus, then we shouldn't be eating bread all year round, and we shouldn't be eating any cake all year round, and we shouldn't be anything that has in it Chametz. Why only for 8 days? So the answer is that there's a good Chametz and there's a bad Chametz. And therefore, all year round, we eat Chametz because we're eating the good Chametz. On Pesach, we don't eat Chametz because that's the bad Chametz. Now, how could it be good Chametz? If Chametz is Yeshus, and Yeshus is really the source of all evil, so how could we say that there's something good about it? So the general answer is that there's a sense where a person feels uplifted, like the Chametz, in a positive way, and is that which is in a negative way. And that is that in order to be a Jew and to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, it's impossible to do that unless you have strength, you're assertive, you're aggressive, you're not intimidated. Because if you are, then we're outnumbered by the rest of the world. Everybody's going in one direction, we're going in another direction. The whole world, especially with Yidden, is putting us down, have this hate towards the Jews, with anti-Semitism. Jews are being persecuted. How is a person able to survive in such an atmosphere? And the only way he survives is because he's very proud that he's Jewish. He's proud that he's connected to Hashem. He's proud that he has Torah and the mitzvahs. And this gives him the strength to be able to rise above all these things that are getting in his way. In fact, the first page in the Shulchan Aruch, and the same as in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It starts off with the words Al Yizbayish Pnei Hamaligim. This is number 15 on the page, which means don't be embarrassed by those who are scoffers, those who will laugh at you, those who make fun of you. And we know that this is something which happens constantly, that people, unfortunately, not only non-Jews, even Jews today make fun of tefillin, of mezuzah, of talis, make fun of our Yiddishkeit, make fun of our standards of tznius, and that's foolish, and that you're living backwards. You're from the ancient times. All sorts of interesting titles and descriptions and name calling for people who follow Torah mitzvahs properly, and yet the person who does it is supposed to feel not only not embarrassed and not only feel humiliated, but on the contrary, I'm very proud of who I am, very proud of what I'm doing, because I understand the value and what it is and what it means to be connected to Hashem. So this is what came up many times, and especially in the Pirkei Avos class, that there are two things about the way a Jew is supposed to be in terms of his feelings, and that's represented by Har Sinai. Sinai is the lowest mountain, but it's a mountain. A Yid has to be a mountain, and a Yid has to be humble and have humility. And the two things come from the fact that, number one, from the same fact that I know whatever I have is from Hashem. So therefore, because whatever I have is from Hashem, I don't feel arrogant. I don't look down at anybody. I realize whatever I have, all the gifts and all the talents and all the good things that I have is what Hashem gave me. So where is there any room to feel arrogant about that? On the other hand, I feel very excited and happy and proud of what I have and what I'm doing, because whatever I'm doing is I'm doing the shlichus of Hashem, who's the King of Kings, the creator of the whole universe, and that makes me feel excited and happy. And which I guess in today's language, this would mean a person has to have a healthy self-esteem, a healthy sense of self-worth, able to go along and to do what they need to do out there in the world. So therefore, both things are true. There's a chametz, which is a positive chametz, and that's the chametz, which is the sense of pride and the sense of self, which is healthy, which comes from the fact that this is something Hashem gave me, and therefore I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of what I have, and I feel that there's nothing in the way, that's nothing that I'm embarrassing me or insulting me or humiliating me. It doesn't bother me what anybody says. I'm so excited of who I am and what I am. On the other hand, there's another kind of a chametz, which is the chametz, which is arrogance. And that's a negative chametz, and that's a destructive chametz, and that's a chametz that gets in the way of Torah mitzvahs. So first tell me if you got this point, and if you did, then we'll go to the next question. Any questions on what I just said?
Well, I do the opposite. I make fun of reform tellers. Why? It's not kosher, it's a joke.
Well, first of all, we shouldn't be making fun of people altogether. But you're not making fun of the person, you're making fun of the idea. But that's something which is, yes, it is. It's foolish when people take things of Torah and they make their own, like somebody, actually when I was in Australia, many, many moons ago, I remember someone brought us a newspaper that goes around in a college. And this was the centerpiece of the newspaper, and the college newspaper that the college kids put together. And it says, make your own God. And they had a bunch of pictures of noses and eyes and mouths and ears. And you can basically create your own picture of God, And unfortunately, that's what some people do with Torah mitzvahs also. I'll do my own, I take this part of the mitzvah, chop it up into 3 pieces. This part I keep, this part I don't keep. This is good, this is not good. Of course, that's all foolish. But again, it's we don't have to inspire ourselves by thinking about how something else is foolish. We inspire ourselves by thinking about how we have the amazing schus to be connected to Hashem, who is King of Kings, Melech Macham Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how every mitzvah is so precious, and every mitzvah has infinite value to it. And these are the things that inspire us. We don't need to think about what the other person doesn't have. I need to think about what I do have. And in fact, being proud of being a Jew doesn't mean in any way putting anyone else down. This is the classical claim that Jews say we are the chosen. So that means we're looking down at everybody else. That's not what it means. We are the chosen means that I realize that what I'm doing is because Hashem chose me with a special mission, and therefore I'm not feeling embarrassed or humiliated that I dress different, that I look different, that I speak different, that I'm doing things different. I'm actually excited because I know where it's coming from. So arrogance is when you put somebody else down. And the healthy self-esteem, the healthy chametz, is when you feel good about yourself, which motivates you to do what you need to do and gives you the strength to do what you need to do without putting anyone else down. That's the difference.
I have a question. Like the whole concept of we eat kosher food because it influences out like neshama in a
Yeah.
way. So if I go gluten free like the whole year round, will I become less arrogant like naturally? Like, that's not how it works.
Let's try it for 1 year.
See what happens?
Yeah, tell me what happens at the end of the year.
Nazis like really,
Basically, when we say that you even if you eat matzah and you say matzah gives you bittul, it doesn't mean you eat matzah and suddenly I just became bittelmatized. Wow, I'm all bittelmatized. Wait, all these things are only gives you potential to become more bittul, but we have to do the work. It's not something which just we become like robots and this takes us over. So the same thing is with the food. You can eat. I think a person who doesn't eat trait because they're vegetarian definitely has an advantage that they have less not kosher in them. But generally speaking, it's all about potential. You can have somebody who's vegetarian for 120 years and doesn't get closer to Yiddishkeit. And you have someone who ate not kosher and is on fire with love for Hashem. So it really depends on the person's avodah. So my question after this is as follows. If this is the case, it would make sense, the reverse, that all year round you stay away from chametz because it's yeshus. For 8 days, Hashem says, okay, you want a little bit of the chametz, you can have 8 days because there is some good arrogance. There's some good chametz, not arrogance, we'll call it a good chametz, a good sense of upliftedness and inspiring and pride that's good and that's healthy. But that'll be for 8 days. Why is it the reverse? That for 8 days, there's no chametz. And for the rest of the year, for 365 or how many days minus 8, we're eating chametz day and night. Why is it the reverse?
Rabbi, because you just read my mind.
Welcome, Chava. This is already 4 years, I think, that this is always happening. Nothing has changed. Baruch Hashem, I still have the mind reading power. And you still have the power to guess the questions that I'm going to come up with. So the answer is as follows. The difference between the two things, the feeling of humility and the feeling of a strong sense of self, and therefore I'll be aggressive about my doing mitzvahs, I'll be assertive when it comes to Yiddishkeit. The difference is like this. Humility is not a tool that gets you to do things. Humility is sort of a passive mode. I'm humble. From being humble, you can't get very far. You're just humble. Basically, we are meant to be doing things all day long, davening, learning, going out into the business world, conducting ourselves properly in the business world with kashrus, with tznius, with honesty, and do things. Imagine, let's take somebody, let's take a guy like who's a shliach. He's out there, he's making programs, doing projects, he's calling people, he is going to people for his fundraising project, he's going to people for his Purim project, for his Pesach project, going to someone. You have to be strong about what you're doing. If you're not strong, then you'll be intimidated, you won't get very far if you feel uncomfortable with what you're doing. I know some people have this feeling. I still remember myself. I'm not very good at going out there and knocking on doors. I still remember going with as a bacher, going with the lulav and esrog, knocking on the door. And what am I thinking? I hope nobody's home, It just, some people just don't feel comfortable. There's an uncomfortable feeling, What do you want? You want me to do this? And who knows what they're going to say? Who knows how they're going to react? So the truth is you have to be strong and you have to feel very good about who you are and what you're doing. And that's how you go forward. And being that 99% of the day was supposed to be proactive and doing things, therefore 99% of the day we're supposed to have that feeling of the positive chametz, the strong sense of self, the healthy sense of self, and be assertive and aggressive about where I'm going and what I want to accomplish. That strength that I have has to be based on humility. In other words, in a certain way, we can say the humility is the foundation. But the foundation is not everything. That's just the foundation. On the foundation, now you build a building. And that's the 99% of the day that I'm supposed to be busy. In the morning, we start the day by saying, Moidani lefanecha Hashem, I thank you. And I realize you gave me back my neshama. That's bittul. And then I'm davening, and that's my bittul. But after I close the siddur and I start my day, that's the time to start doing things. Everybody doing whatever they need to do, whatever their avodah is. And for doing things, the tool for doing things is not bittul. Bittul is not a tool for being proactive. Bittul is just loyalty. I'm loyal, I'm devoted to Hashem, I'm accepting Hashem. It's more of an acceptance of Hashem, and I'm one with Hashem, but that's not what gets me to do. What gets me to do is the stronger sense, that sense of strength is what gets me to do. And that's what motivates me to do. And that's what pushes me to do. That's my driving force. And that driving force has to be based on bittul. So if you have a shliach who's doing amazing things all day long, and because of what he's doing, people look at him and they talk to him and they honor him and they respect him and all that, he constantly remembers that it's all based on bittul. It's not me. I'm not the big guy. I'm not the smart guy. This is the Rebbe's brachas, and that's why I'm succeeding. And that's what he feels. So basically, just sitting back and thinking that everything that I have is from the Rebbe and all that, that's not going to get me places. What gets me places and the way to achieve and to accomplish is with a strong sense of self. It's the strength that gets me accomplishing things. And the bittul is what gives the strength the ability to go in the right direction. Because when you're feeling strong, you can easily slip into aggressiveness that's negative, and assertiveness that could be negative, and could be slipping into arrogance, which is destructive and negative, and so on. So again, let's put it this way: the bittul is the foundation, and the tools for action is more the healthy sense of chametz. So therefore, just like in the day, the bittul is in the morning, that starts me off, and the rest of the day is action. And that's where I need the tools for action, which is a healthy sense of self and the strength. So too with the year. First we have 8 days. These 8 days is like a bittul seminar. For 8 days, no chametz and no touching water, and everything is like out of the picture completely. We're totally, completely immersed in bittul. Now that I have established this bittul for these 8 days, for the rest of the year, I can be having chametz and having the healthy sense of self, which is going to be used as tools to build and to accomplish and to achieve where I'm supposed to. Is this understood? It reminds me of the beautiful Sichum of the Rebbe, and you might have learned this in class. It's about the Pasha Vayetze that talks about Yaakov, and so many psukim in the Pasha talk about Yaakov and sheep. This color sheep and that color sheep, and he made this with the sheep and he did that with the sheep. And the Rebbe discusses, like, what's this thing with sheep? Why are we spending so much time and energy? This is Yaakov Avinu, one of the 3 of us, and he was involved with all sorts of amazing spiritual things. What's so much about the sheep? Anyone remember such a sikha? What is the big thing with sheep? The Rebbe explains that, what? Yeah, you're right. Sheep is bittul. A sheep by nature, that's why sheep are those that they represent they follow. Sheep are followers because they have bittul in them, so they follow. So the nature of sheep is bittul. In fact, the Hebrew word for sheep is tzoin, which is spelled tzadik, aleph, nun. Tzadik aleph in Hebrew comes from the word tzei, go out, step out of yourself. And the same with the parsha, it's called Vayetze. The whole union of working with the sheep was bittul. Then the Rebbe says we see an interesting thing. Yaakov had dozens and dozens of sheep, hundreds of sheep, thousands of sheep. Then what did he do with the sheep? He sold it. And with the money that he sold the sheep, he bought other animals and servants and maids and different animals. In other words, the sheep was the beginning. The sheep was the source. The sheep was the basis. But then it was transformed into other things, which means that the sheep, the bittul, is the source. But the actual avodah, the actual work that needs to be done, for that, we need to take that bittul and transform it into practical tools that will help me accomplish and achieve what I need to accomplish. So there's a thin line here, and that's why very often there are people who go out there and they're really aggressive about Torah, Mitzvah, and Yiddishkeit, but it gets to a point where, God forbid, it slips into arrogance, and then they, God forbid, go off track. It can happen. So you have to be extremely careful to have both, to have the bittul, and at the same time, to know that I need that strong, healthy sense of self to accomplish what I need to accomplish. So that explains almost everything that you have on the list. And I'm not going to go through each line. Some years we have much more time. I do something from Gemara. In the booklet, you have page 45, 46, 47, 48, a lot of pages. All this in Gemara is about arrogance, how negative and destructive arrogance is. Arrogance is compared to avodah zarah. Arrogance is compared to almost any major sin, because arrogance is something, so we have to be extremely careful and cautious not to allow arrogance to develop within ourselves. And that's what we do with Pesach. But at the same time, we have to have a healthy sense of self and this confidence based on the fact that Hashem is with me and He's behind me and He's giving me the strength. And with that power, I go out and accomplish what I need to accomplish.
What's the difference between confidence and arrogance?
So I think one of the ways of recognizing what I'm really feeling, if it's just confidence or it's arrogance, is, like I said, how does it affect me relating to other people? An arrogant person, it usually leads to them disrespecting others, looking down at others, not caring about others. But a person who has humility, but what they're feeling is a strong sense of healthy sense of self, because I need to accomplish the thing that Hashem wants me to accomplish, that's not gonna make me look down at anyone. On the contrary, it makes me even more sensitive to other people and to the needs of other people and to respect other people. I think that's one of the simplest tests I can make for myself to see where I'm really at. Okay, to be continued. Yeah.
I remember in one of the editions of the Chumash at the dorm, there was like Hasidic insights on the bottom. And we remember reading something about how Yaakov needed to be like a shepherd in a way at the exact time that he was, because it was like something that he couldn't accomplish without the humility of being a shepherd. Something I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like going into like the specific refinement that like a shepherd goes through. I can't remember. It's like, I know this is an empty statement, but like.
No, it could be, but I know it does talk about the fact that it's a similar idea that before I go out into the world and I'm going to sort of transform things that are out there, first I have to separate myself from the world to get my own strength, and then I can go out there. It's like Shabbos. First I need Shabbos. Shabbos, I'm able to consume my own spiritual strength, and then I'm able to go out there and do the work that needs to be done. So Yaakov, for a time period, was a shepherd. During being a shepherd, what's a shepherd? A shepherd lives a very beautiful, calm, life, tranquil, out in the field with the sheep, away from everything that's going on. And spiritually, that's very strengthening. But the ultimate purpose is to get that strength to go out there and do what has to be done.
It's beautiful how the motif of a shepherd is so prevalent throughout Judaism. Like we see it also in Tehillim and everything.
Right,
verse
King
mentions
David was the
it.
shepherd, and Moshe was the shepherd, and Yaakov was the shepherd. So besides the fact that a shepherd represents a certain sense of leadership, that the leaders are compared to shepherds, and Hashem is like compared to a shepherd, it's also the same.
And we are
Yeah.
the sheep.
What? And we are the sheep, yeah.
Wow.
So I guess we won't have our regular Seder today. Seder.
Yeah.